The early September sun bathed the campus in golden hues, creating a postcard-perfect day at Eastwood University. Students milled about the central courtyard, their laughter and chatter filling the crisp air. Among them was Matt Andrews, striding confidently toward the administration building. A senior now, Matt had grown into his role as one of the campus's most popular and charismatic figures. Tall, broad-shouldered, with tousled brown hair and a killer smile, Matt had an easy charm that made him a natural leader. Today, however, his usual air of nonchalance was laced with anticipation. As part of the university's mentorship program, he'd been assigned to guide a freshman through their first semester. He didn't know who his mentee was yet, but Matt prided himself on being a supportive senior, so he looked forward to meeting them. The mentorship meeting was held in the student lounge. Matt arrived early, leaning casually against the counter with a cup of coffee in hand. He scanned the room, nodding at a few familiar faces before checking his phone. "Hey, Andrews," his friend Chloe called out from across the room. "Looking for your mentee already? You're such a teacher's pet." Matt laughed. "I'm just naturally amazing at everything, Chloe. You should know this by now." Chloe rolled her eyes but grinned. "Good luck with your freshmen. Try not to scare them off with all that charm." Matt was about to retort when the program coordinator began calling out names. The mentees were matched to their mentors one by one, and Matt waited patiently until his name was called. "Andrews Mathew," the coordinator announced. "Your mentee is Noah Park." Matt froze mid-sip, his coffee cup suspended in the air. Noah Park. He hadn't heard that name in years, but it was one he could never forget. Memories from his high school days flooded his mind. A nervous confession, a misunderstanding, and the abrupt departure of the boy who had once made Matt's heart race. He barely registered the rest of the coordinator's words as he turned toward the group of mentees, and there he was. Park Noah stood near the back of the room, clutching the strap of his backpack like it was a lifeline. His dark hair was slightly longer than Matt remembered, falling softly across his forehead. He wore a simple sweater and jeans, looking every bit the quiet, studious type. But what struck Matt the most was how Noah seemed to avoid eye contact with everyone, including him. For a moment, Matt was rooted to the spot, stunned by the coincidence. He hadn't seen or heard from Noah since high school, and yet here he was, on the same campus, in the same room assigned to him as a mentee. Fate works in mysterious ways, Matt thought, a small smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. The coordinator motioned for the pairs to meet up, snapping Matt out of his daze. He straightened and approached Noah, his heart pounding in a way he hadn't felt in years. "Noah," he said, his voice warm and welcoming. Noah looked up, his eyes widening briefly before narrowing with hesitation. "Matt," he replied, his tone neutral but guarded. Matt's smile faltered slightly at the formal address. In high school, Noah had always called him by his nickname, or with a teasing grin, but now there was no warmth in his voice, no hint of recognition beyond polite acknowledgement. "It's good to see you again," Matt tried, his voice softer now. Noah nodded stiffly. "Yeah, it's been a while." Matt couldn't ignore the distance in his demeanor. It was as if Noah had built a wall around himself, one that Matt wasn't sure how to breach. "Well," Matt said, clapping his hands together lightly, "looks like we're stuck with each other this semester. Let me show you around campus." Noah hesitated, then gave a small nod. "Okay." As they walked through the sprawling campus, Matt pointed out the key landmarks: the library, the dining hall, the gymnasium. He kept the conversation light, cracking jokes and sharing anecdotes about college life. "And over there is the infamous coffee shop where dreams go to die," Matt said, pointing to a small cafe. "Try their espresso if you're feeling adventurous, but don't blame me if you can't sleep for 3 days." Noah chuckled softly despite himself, and Matt's chest swelled with a flicker of hope. "You still love coffee, right?" Matt asked, remembering the countless times he'd seen Noah with a thermos during high school. Noah's steps faltered briefly before he nodded. "Yeah, I do." Matt smiled, but the conversation soon lapsed into silence. Noah seemed content to let Matt do most of the talking, only responding when necessary. It wasn't like him, at least not the Noah Matt remembered. As they reached the student union building, Matt decided to test the waters. "You know," he began casually, "I didn't expect to see you here. It's a nice surprise." Noah glanced at him, his expression unreadable. "Yeah, I guess." Matt tilted his head, studying Noah's face. "Do you remember me?" he asked, his tone light but laced with genuine curiosity. Noah stopped walking and turned to face him fully. His gaze was steady but distant. "Of course I remember you, Matt. We went to the same high school." The words were polite, almost robotic, but the subtle edge in his voice didn't escape Matt's notice. Before Matt could respond, Noah added, "But that was a long time ago." The finality in his tone stung more than Matt expected. He watched as Noah shifted his weight, clearly uncomfortable, and decided to let it go, for now. "Right," Matt said with a forced chuckle. "Well, I'm glad you're here. If you need anything at all, just let me know." Noah nodded again, his guard still firmly in place. By the time they finished the tour, Matt was more determined than ever to figure out what had happened to the bright, bold Noah he remembered. Something had changed, and Matt couldn't shake the feeling that it had everything to do with their past. As Noah walked ahead toward his dorm, Matt watched him go, his jaw tightening with resolve. "You ran away once," he murmured to himself, "but not this time. This time, I'm not letting you go." With that, Matt turned on his heel and headed back to his apartment, already planning his next move. The late afternoon sun filtered through the large windows of the student lounge, casting soft golden beams across the room. Matt sat on a plush armchair near the back, his legs sprawled out comfortably, absently tapping his fingers against the armrest. He had the perfect view of Noah, who was seated at a table, scribbling furiously into his notebook, as if trying to ignore the rest of the world. Matt had been watching him for the past 10 minutes, trying to summon the courage to approach. It wasn't like Matt to hesitate. He was used to being the one everyone gravitated toward. Charming, witty, never at a loss for words. But Noah was different. Every time Matt thought of him, a flood of memories came rushing back, sharp and raw. God, how much time had passed. Matt leaned back, eyes closing for a moment. He could almost feel the weight of those memories. Memories of high school. The moments that made him feel like an entirely different person. It had been Matt's senior year, and Noah, just a shy, awkward sophomore, had somehow caught his eye. It wasn't in the obvious, loud way Noah caught the attention of others. No, it was in the way Noah sat alone in the library, always with a book in hand, his dark eyes intense as he absorbed every word. Or the way Noah would smile quietly when he thought no one was looking, like he held some secret only he understood. Matt had found it endearing, and despite his usually carefree attitude toward relationships, something about Noah intrigued him. He'd started sitting next to Noah in class, asking about his interests, learning little details about him that no one else seemed to care about. That day, the day Noah had confessed, had started like any other. But Matt hadn't been ready for what had happened. Noah had caught him alone after school, near the bleachers where Matt often stayed to think. "Matt," Noah had called, his voice barely above a whisper. Matt had looked up, startled. Noah was standing there, shifting nervously from one foot to the other, eyes averted, clearly trying to work up the courage to say something. "Yeah?" Matt had said, wiping his hands on his jeans, trying to shake off the awkwardness that suddenly felt so thick in the air. I wanted to tell you something," Noah had begun, his voice unsteady. I think I like you, more than a friend." Matt had blinked, completely caught off guard. His mind raced. What the hell do I say? Noah, his face flushed with embarrassment, had seemed to shrink into himself, as though he were ready to disappear. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said anything." Matt, stunned by the sudden confession, had frozen, unable to form the right words. He hadn't known how to respond. He had never been in a situation like this before. Was it a joke? He had thought, his heart hammering in his chest. Could Noah really mean this? Instead of giving an answer, Matt had stammered, his usual smoothness abandoning him for the first time in ages. I don't know what to say, Noah. The silence that followed had felt suffocating. I understand, Noah had whispered, his voice barely audible. I shouldn't have expected anything. I'll just go. Matt had opened his mouth, wanting to explain, wanting to say something, anything, to make Noah feel better. But it was too late. Noah had already turned and walked away, shoulders slumped in defeat. That had been the last time Matt had seen Noah in high school. The very next day, Noah had transferred schools without a word. Matt had spent the following days in a daze, too proud to seek Noah out, too ashamed of his own reaction. But deep down, he had never truly understood what had gone wrong. Back in the present, Matt ran a hand through his hair, trying to shake the lingering feelings of guilt. He stared at Noah, who was still engrossed in his notes, seemingly unaware of Matt's intense gaze. God, what have I done? Matt thought, frustration rising within him. I let him walk away once. I can't let it happen again. He had replayed that moment in his head 1,000 times, each time wishing he had reacted differently. Matt had never been good with vulnerability, especially when it came to something as personal as feelings. But now, sitting here with Noah just a few feet away, he knew he had to fix things. Matt let out a slow breath and stood up from his seat, determined. He didn't know how, but he had to start somewhere. He was going to make things right. Hey, Noah, Matt called, his voice light but laced with intent. Noah looked up at him, his expression unreadable. For a second, Matt thought he saw a flicker of recognition in his eyes, but Noah quickly masked it with a neutral nod. Yeah? Noah replied, his voice flat. Matt couldn't help but smirk. He was going to get Noah to crack, just like old times. You look so serious, Noah, Matt said with a playful grin. You didn't miss me all these years, did you? Noah's eyebrows furrowed, and he immediately looked away, clearly uncomfortable with the directness. What do you mean? He asked, his voice cautious. Matt shrugged nonchalantly, not letting the moment slip away. You know, all that time in high school, did you really not think about me once? Not even a little? Noah's face flushed slightly, and he shifted in his seat, clearly trying to avoid eye contact. It was a small victory for Matt, but it was enough to spark the faintest hope in his chest. No, I didn't, Noah said curtly, clearly attempting to dismiss the conversation. Matt leaned against the table, closer now, lowering his voice in a teasing manner. That's funny. Because I've thought about you a lot, Noah. Funny how life works, huh? Noah stiffened, his hand gripping his pen tighter. I'm not interested in your games, Matt. But Matt could see through it. He saw the way Noah's lips trembled slightly, as though he wanted to say more, but was holding back. And that gave Matt the confidence to push forward. No games, I promise, Matt said, his tone softer, more sincere now. I just want to fix things, Noah. I messed up. I didn't mean to hurt you. Noah didn't respond immediately, but his eyes softened ever so slightly. Matt took it as a victory, however small. I know you probably don't want to talk about it, Matt continued, trying to keep the tone light, but I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere. So, let's start over, yeah? Noah met his gaze for the first time in what felt like forever, his dark eyes unreadable, but full of something Matt couldn't quite place. There was a long silence. Then Noah exhaled sharply. You are not the same person I remember, he said quietly. Matt smiled faintly. Neither are you. Noah shifted uncomfortably, clearly struggling with something in his mind. He stood up abruptly, gathering his things. I need to go, he muttered. Matt didn't stop him. He knew better than to push too hard. But as Noah walked away, Matt's heart ached with the knowledge that fixing what had been broken all those years ago was going to be harder than he had anticipated. But I'm not giving up, Matt thought, watching Noah's retreating figure. Not this time. Matt couldn't help but grin as he watched Noah walk into the student lounge. It had been a few days since their conversation, and though Noah still acted distant, Matt was determined to break through his walls. The fact that Noah had looked at him just a little longer than usual last time, well, that was progress, right? "You can't run away from me forever, Noah," Matt thought with a smirk, walking toward him. "Morning, Noah," Matt greeted, leaning casually against the counter, his eyes glinting with mischief. Noah glanced up, startled at first, but quickly masked it with his usual indifferent expression. "Morning," he muttered, his gaze flicking back to the screen of his laptop, as if he hadn't just been caught in the act of mentally noting Matt's every move. Matt leaned in a little closer, his voice teasing. "I was thinking about you last night." Noah's head snapped up, eyes wide with surprise, before quickly narrowing in suspicion. "What? Why?" Matt chuckled, thoroughly enjoying the subtle shift in Noah's demeanor. "I just realized that I never got to ask you if you wanted coffee." "Coffee?" Noah asked, clearly confused. Matt tilted his head, trying to look as innocent as possible. "Yeah, coffee? That thing you're clearly addicted to?" He raised a brow in playful challenge. Noah rolled his eyes. "I don't need your charity, Matt." "Charity?" Matt repeated with a mock gasp. "You wound me, Noah. I'm just being a good mentor, showing you the ropes of surviving college life. You need your caffeine, and I'm here to make sure you don't collapse from withdrawal." Noah's lips twitched, but he quickly suppressed the smile. "I'm fine." But Matt wasn't having any of it. As Noah started to walk away, Matt grabbed his arm lightly. "Come on. I'm buying. You're not getting out of this one." Noah hesitated, glancing at Matt's hand on his arm, but he didn't pull away. After a brief moment, he sighed. "Fine. One coffee." Matt grinned, releasing his grip and heading toward the coffee stand, with Noah reluctantly following him. For the next few days, Matt's relentless teasing and small acts of kindness continued. He bought Noah coffee every morning, sometimes grabbing a muffin on the side just because he knew Noah secretly liked them. He offered to carry Noah's books between classes, always making sure to brush his hand against Noah's every time, just to see the faint blush that spread across his face. One afternoon, Matt noticed Noah's keychain had fallen off his backpack. It was his favorite cartoon character, a small plushie of a wolf that had a little crown on its head. Matt smiled to himself. Cute. The next day, as Noah was about to leave class, Matt handed him a small bag. "What's this?" Noah asked, his brow furrowing. "Open it," Matt urged with a grin. Noah hesitated for a moment before pulling out the small, identical plushy keychain that Matt had bought earlier that day. "You dropped yours," Matt explained with an almost careless shrug. "I figured you'd want it back." Noah stared at the keychain, his fingers brushing over the soft material, as if unsure of how to react. I didn't ask for this," he muttered, but his voice lacked the usual bite. Matt's smirk widened. "It's not about asking. It's about spoiling my mentee. And besides, I know you've been looking for one of these for weeks." Noah glanced up at him, clearly startled by Matt's insight. He was about to protest, but Matt was already turning to leave. "See you later, Noah," he said, voice almost playful. But the undercurrent of sincerity was unmistakable. As Matt walked away, he couldn't help but feel a small thrill. He hadn't expected Noah to react so quietly. Normally, his gestures didn't get much more than a grumbled thanks from people, but Noah seemed different. The next day, as the weather took a sudden turn for the chillier, Matt noticed something that immediately caught his attention. Noah had forgotten his jacket. He sat in the library, shivering slightly, as he typed furiously on his laptop, his shoulders hunched in an attempt to keep warm. Matt could see his discomfort from across the room, and without hesitation, he stood up and walked over to him. "Hey, you," Matt said, standing in front of Noah and blocking his view of the screen. Noah looked up, visibly startled. "What are you doing?" "Here," Matt said, ignoring the question, as he draped his hoodie over Noah's shoulders. "You're going to catch a cold if you keep sitting there like that." Noah blinked at the hoodie, his face flushing slightly. "I didn't ask for this." "I know," Matt replied smoothly, not missing a beat. "But I can't have my mentee sneezing all over me. I'm not that nice, Noah." Noah didn't say anything, but the faintest hint of a smile tugged at the corner of his lips. He pulled the hoodie closer, savoring the warmth it provided. Noah was aware of every little thing Matt did for him. The coffee, the keychain, the hoodie. It was hard to ignore when someone so persistent, so charming, kept going out of their way to make you feel special. But that was the thing. Noah didn't want to feel special. He didn't want to need Matt's attention. He had learned his lesson years ago. People weren't always what they seemed. Matt was probably just doing this out of some misplaced sense of guilt. Or maybe he thought it was funny, seeing how far he could push Noah before he broke. But there was something else, too. Noah could feel it, something beneath the teasing and joking. Matt's actions felt real. His concern, his little gifts, those weren't just empty gestures. Noah could sense the sincerity behind them, and it made him question everything he'd once believed about Matt. Maybe I was wrong, Noah thought, looking down at the keychain. Maybe he didn't forget me. Maybe he really does care. But how could he trust that? After all, it had been Matt who had rejected him all those years ago. It had been Matt who hadn't said anything when Noah had confessed his feelings. Noah let out a small sigh. Maybe I'm just overthinking it. Maybe I should just enjoy the attention. But as much as he wanted to ignore the flutter in his chest whenever Matt smiled at him, Noah couldn't. The past had left its mark, and he wasn't ready to let go of his walls just yet. Just when Noah thought he had a handle on his emotions, another complication arose. It was during their history class. Noah was sitting next to Matt, as usual, when a senior named Liam, who had a reputation for being a bit of a flirt, approached. "Hey, Noah," Liam greeted with a smile, leaning casually against the desk. "How's it going?" Noah looked up, surprised. Liam wasn't someone he usually interacted with, but his smile was warm, his voice smooth. "It's going well, I guess," Noah replied, not sure how to respond to the sudden attention. "I was thinking," Liam continued, still leaning in a little too close, "maybe we could grab lunch together later? There's this great diner just down the street. You into it?" Noah blinked, momentarily speechless. He wasn't used to being asked out so openly. Sure," Noah said awkwardly, looking at Matt for a brief second. Matt, who had been listening intently, suddenly let out a low chuckle, though Noah couldn't tell if it was out of amusement or something else. "Liam," Matt said coolly, "I think Noah's already got plans with me today." Noah felt a twinge of confusion. Had Matt just claimed him? Liam raised an eyebrow, but didn't back down. "Oh, is that so?" "Yep," Matt said with a grin. "So you'll have to ask him another time." Liam seemed to take it in stride. "Fine. I'll take a rain check," he said, winking at Noah before walking away. Noah was left staring at Matt, who was smiling like he had won some sort of unspoken battle. Noah felt an odd flutter in his chest. Why did it bother him so much to see Liam so interested in him?